Hello, everyone, and welcome to our day 4 preview show where we've done the hard yards, hopefully, and found you a few winners. And we're just going to roll the dice one more time, like I say, in our day 4 preview here. And the first race we're going to look at is the 130. It's the JCB Triumph Hurdle. Got betting through here. Sorry, I haven't got betting through. I'm going to start this one again. The betting went completely.
No betting.
No betting, yeah. It's bloody Sergino. Right, anyway, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our day 4 preview. We've done the hard yards. Hopefully, we found you some winners this week. Hopefully, you're also as well enjoying the Cheltenham Festival. But it is the last day. It's Gold Cup day, and we're going to be previewing 3 Grade 1s. And then also as well, we'll be looking at other races on the day to see if we can get you some last-minute wins. And the first race we're going to look at is the 130. It's the JCB Triumph Hurdle Grade 1 contest. So Gino is your favourite for Nicky Henderson at 5-4. We then got Madgeborough next in at 9-2. Salvador Monday at 6s. Cargi 7s. Stormheart 10s. And Bigger are the rest. Katie, I'll come to you here first. Last night, at the time of recording, we're doing this on Saturday night, there was quite a lot of vibes, wasn't there, on the old Twitter machine about Sir Gino drifting on the exchanges. Nicky Henderson came out on Nick Luck on Sunday in the morning, said he's alive and well, he doesn't know what's going on, and all's A1 with him. So, he's now 5-4. What do we make of what's been going on?
Yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it? Obviously, there's been an issue with the Nicky Henderson yard. The horses haven't really been firing. Constitution Hill's been under the weather, and apparently a few others as well. So it's just hoping really that the likes of Sergino and Shishkin and the other contenders that they have this week have stayed fit and healthy, because it would be a real shame if there were to be a few absentees from the yard. Sergino, he showed on trials day beating Burdett Road by 10 lengths. It was hugely impressive. He showed his talent. He's a really exciting horse. He's beautiful to look at as well. And it would be really good to see him come here and put in a really good performance like Lossiemouth did in the race last year. We've got Salvatore Mundi in there, who's been well spoken about recently. And he's the horse that finished second to Sergino when they were in France. Obviously, the Donnellys have bought both of them. So they've got both sides covered, really. If Sergino doesn't run, Salvatore Mundi is a very good replacement for them. And Madgeborough, of course, there's been plenty of good vibes from him, from the Willie Mullins yard. Kagisi won at the DRF. She has to have her chance. I quite like Stormheart, though. I'd give him a squeak at 10-1. I think he's quite a nice each way price, as is Nürburgring for Joseph Patrick O'Brien. He's been running well this season. So I think it's a hard one to really find a strong fancy in. Sergino's solid enough. Probably won't be backing him now. Maybe go for one at an each way price. Stormheart for Willie Mullins or Nürburgring for Joseph O'Brien.
Okay, a few thoughts then away from the favourite. Sergino, how about you, Izzy? What have you made of all this noise on Twitter about Sergino?
I mean, there's no smoke without fire. There was always going to be some murmurings about the other horses this week, because we've had, it's not just the Constitution Hill news. There was Under Control withdrawn 2 weeks ago under veterinary advice from the Moor Battle. There was another one withdrawn under veterinary advice at Sandown this Saturday, just gone. There are clearly issues at the moment, and I feel for Henderson. It's not something that you speculate about with any fun. There are, a lot of popular horses in his stable. He clearly puts a lot of pressure on as well. You could see when the news was breaking about Constitution Hill, just how deflated he was. It's not something that, should be made light of. I think certainly, he's come out and he's said Sergino is fine, so we have to trust that. But as a punter, I still have my concerns about the stable form at the moment and the wellness of some of the horses. Who are we to know if Constitution Hill had particular kind of sniffles and mucus that hasn't spread to any of the other horses? No doubt they're going to have done their absolute best to keep him away from some of the others, but we don't know. We're not there every day, and I don't like that feeling of doubt, especially at 5-4. That's not a risk I would be wanting to take. I largely agree with everything Katie said about all of the other runners. So I'm just going to throw A little mention out for Liari for the Nichols team. Obviously, the Nichols team were at 40% strike rate at the time of recording. I swear I saw Liari has another entry somewhere as well. I'm not sure, but
he's been declared for the Boodles.
Has he been declared for the Boodles? So he's probably not going to go in this then. So I'll probably just go no bet. It's just not a race I'm going to mess around with, to be completely honest with you. I can't put money down at 5-4 with questions around stable form. If all of this hadn't happened, I would have been quite solidly with Sergino because I think he's awesome. I know Katie mentioned that, he put Burdett Road away quite comfortably at Cheltenham on trials day. But then Burdett Road come out and has had a season-ending kind of issue. So how fit was Burdett Road? Like, was there a problem then? Who knows? But Sergino really should win this comfortably as long as all is as fine as we are told.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen a horse go up that hill like that in a long time. Like, he was just super impressive on the day. I was going into that race, a massive Burdett Road fan. I was a bit suspicious over the form at Kempton with Sergino, but I firmly changed my mind that day because Burdett Road, looked no mug when he won at the November meeting. And yeah, you do say maybe he wasn't all that, but at the same time, you couldn't have been helped by impressed with him that day. And it is concerning about the vibes. If he does run up to that form last time out, Sergino 5-4 does look a good price, but you do have the concerns. Cargeese is the horse that I'm quite interested in for Willie Mullins. Obviously, he did win last time out at the Dublin Racing Festival, but I was doing some digging in this race, and fillies do have a good record in this race. In fact, in the race last year, the first three positions were all filled out by fillies. You had Lossiemouth, Gala Marceau, and Zenta as well for JP McManus. And you only have to go back a few years when Goshen fell and Burning Victory picked up the pieces. It is a race where the fillies can come to the fore. They get the allowance as well. So Cargeese, I like the way she won last time out. Of course, everyone in was looking in behind for all the Willie Mullins eye catches. What's going to be his triumph horse at the festival? His number one contender and all that. And obviously, there's all the hype around Margery and that. But sometimes I just think you've got to look at the plain and obvious. And Cargeese is a horse that's won. She's going in the right direction. She gets a mare's allowance. Fillies have a good record in the race. I'm just playing it straightforward with her. If I was looking away from Sergino, I do think 7-1 is a little bit of a big price. And I'm probably going to have a few quid on her on the day if she does get declared. So then that's our thoughts then on the triumph. We're now going to move on to the Albert Bartlett, which I think is probably going to be, forget Ballyburn class-wise, I think for horses of the future, I think the Albert Bartlett is probably the race of the week because from the novice hurdle division, because I do think there's a lot of nice horses running in here that I think are going to have a big future. And Reading Tommy Wrong is your current favourite at the time recording at 5-1. We then got Dancing City next in along with High Class Hero at 7s, Gidley Parks at 8s, Shannon Bob at 10s, Captain Teague at 11s, Lecky Watson 12s. Bigger are the rest. Izzy, I'll come to you here first. Reading Tommy Wrong is a horse I got a lot of time for. I think a lot of people have been reading him wrong in his namesake. No one gave him a prayer except me. I did tip him that day when he won the Lauders of the Ace, but he's a horse that hasn't really captured the racing fans' imagination. It's more than fair to say. Do we think he can prove the doubters wrong again here?
I think Reading Tommy Wrong looks a very good bet. Obviously, he's well fancied now. I think, obviously there's obvious reasons. It's the Mullins kind of stable form. You've got the fact that, he's won his last four starts, all fairly impressively. Last one was over 2 mile 4. This is 3 miles. So he's got to sort of step up in distance a little bit. But I can't see why he wouldn't, be able to do that. I know I mentioned on one of the earlier pods, you've got Gidley Park in here as well, depending on the ground. Obviously, if it's rained a lot, then he won't be going in this. That's what Harry Fry said. So we can kind of make of that what we will. I think Gidley Park, wherever he lines up, is a very good horse. So he's one that I would certainly be, fearful of in that sense. You've also got a couple of others in here. You've got High Class Hero, Again, you've got that Mullins factor. You've got a string of wins, the most recent over 2 mile 6 as well. So again, that sort of step up a little bit in trip. Doesn't look like it should be too bad. The one who almost looks like he's been crying out for a bit of a step up in trip is Johnny Who, for the John Joe O'Neill team. So he's another one that I'll be keeping an eye on. I haven't landed on a kind of a set horse for this yet, which you can probably tell, but there is a few kind of on my shortlist.
Yeah, I can see why. I mean, there's loads in there that I really like. I'm quite excited by quite a few. I like loads of them. I'll go through them in a minute. But Katie, I'll let you have your say first before the horses I like in the race. Who did you think was going to take this year's Bartlett?
I'm quite similar to Izzy. I haven't come down on one yet. I think reading Tommy Wrong has got a very good chance on what he did in the Lawless and Ace. Dancing City was very impressive the last time. High Class Hero's got plenty of wins to his name, but as is Gidley Park, and Shanna Bob comes into it with a big reputation. I think Captain Teague will be suited by a slog, so if it was to turn testing, then he'd make my shortlist, but I wonder if he quite has a class as some of the Willie Mullins trained horses at the top of the market. So I'm not entirely sure yet. If I was forced to choose one now, I'd probably side with reading Tommy Wrong just about on his form at Nace.
Yeah, I think he's probably the classiest horse, but sometimes this race can go full circle. A few years ago, you needed a proper slogger, a proper battle-hardened horse, and then the likes of Monkfish came along and a couple of horses like that maybe were more classy and they didn't have the grit and determination, and that they had less experience. So it kind of can go in different ways, the winner of this race. I like reading Tommy Wrong. Like I say, I put him up last time when he won the Lawler and Ace. I like Shanna Bob. That form has been boosted. The likes of Carrie Hill has done some good work for that form. Captain Teague will probably enjoy the slog. And also another horse that ran in that race that he won, the Challow, the Jukebox Man. I really like him. Ben Poulin says some nice things about him, and he would definitely probably relish a step up and trip in testing ground. And we've already spoken how good his novice herders are. So yeah, the Jukebox Man is definitely a horse I'd like to keep on side to us. I think there's plenty of horses in this race that you can make a case for, and I could easily see myself back in a few, to be honest with you, and probably still wouldn't find the winner. It's that competitive. So, yeah, that's our thoughts then on the Albert Bartlett. We're now going on to the big one, the big race of the week. It's, of course, the Blue Doors Cheltenham Gold Cup, and Galloping de Champ is your favourite, 11-8. We've then got Fast or Slow at 5-1, Shishkin at 7-1, Jerry Colomb at 11s, L'Empress at 16s, Brave Man Games 20s. Bigger are the rest. Casey, I'll come to you here first. Galloping de Champ, he's 11-8. He deserves to be favourite, but I don't think this is no gimme. I think there's definitely a few horses in here that could give him something to think about, at least anyway.
Yeah, it looks a really good renewal of the race. Now, Galloping de Champs is the one to beat. He was fantastic in the race last year. He's the returning champion, and he was brilliant at Christmas time when he beat the field by 23 lengths. He was just incredible on that day, and he backed it up to win at the DRF once again too in the Irish Gold Cup, beating Fast or Slow. He clearly is the one to beat, and he's not a horse I necessarily want to be taking on, but there so happens to be one of my favourite horses in here in Shishkin. And I think if any horse is going to serve it up to Galloping de Champs, it's going to be Shishkin on a good day. Now, last year, he just didn't turn up at all in the Ryanair. He had to be niggled along throughout the race from early on by Nico de Boinville. It was amazing that he finished as close to NYLN as he did on that occasion, I thought. But this season, we've seen him after what happened at Ascot, the refusal. We've seen him back to his best, maybe. In the King George, I thought he was travelling beautifully, and I'm of the opinion that he would have won had he stood up. It was just a freak incident. It was just desperately unlucky. He had a nice enough prep in the Denman Chase at Newbury when he was beating Hitman, Chris's Ryanair winner. But I feel like he is the best chaser that Britain has to offer. And he's had a couple of seasons where he's been in and out a little bit, but he was very good at Aintree last year in his finish. Again, on that occasion, though, he didn't jump as well as he can. And if he doesn't do that here, then Galloping de Champs, he takes no prisoners. He's going to win with ease once again, I think, because I don't think the others are good enough to get near him at Cheltenham. But if Shishkin can travel around as he did in the King George and be there with him at the finish, I think he's the only horse that has got the speed to match him and has got that turn of foot. So I will be siding with Shishkin, but it's more in support of Shishkin rather than wanting to take on Galopin Des Champs, because I hugely respect him and I'm a big fan of him as well. And I think he will take all of the beating, but I'm just hoping that it's going to be Shishkin that could maybe spring a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you. Shishkin's at the top of my list to take him on. I think there are a few horses that you can take him on with. I'll go into some of the rest in a minute. But yeah, Shishkin, I think over this trip, he's still got a lot more to offer. We might not have even seen his best performance yet over this trip. And if Henderson has got him close to his best, I think he's going to give him one hell of a fight at least anyway. How about you, Izzy?
Yeah, I mean, Katie kind of said it all in terms of Galopin Des Champs. He looks so dominant this season. 23 length victory at Christmas at Leopardstown over Jerry Colombe is nothing to ignore. He's clearly in the form of his life, and he's very much a monster of a horse, and one that you could quite easily go running scared of. I'm actually with Galopin Des Champs. I've backed him. I really fancy him. I think he's one of the sort of bankers of the week in terms of favourites. But there are horses here that I think, if I'm sort of looking at it, it could be more sentimental. So sort of sentimental in the sense that I'm looking at these British horses that have run in the King George. In terms of Shishkin. So obviously, he was so unlucky, like who clipped their own foot or whatever he did, tripped himself up. It's absolutely wild. And, any other year you'd be looking at your King George winner and saying, yeah, definitely got a great chance for the Gold Cup. I think it's because Shishkin is such a temperamental horse. You don't quite know what Shishkin you're going to get. You've got that Shishkin that battled back against an Ergamin and showed all that fight and all that heart, and you kind of know that's in there somewhere. And that's where that whole kind of, he will serve it up to Galopin on his day. Yes, he will. But we've just got to hope he is kind of on his going day and in the mood and all that sort of thing. The one that's largely sort of not ignored, because I don't think you can ever ignore the personality of his trainer, but Hewick is in the market, and let's just remember that he did win the King George, and whether you're of the opinion that Shishkin would have won, and I kind of lean towards I think he probably still would have got up, Hewick was flying regardless. I think he would have gone close even if Shishkin would have stood up. I think Hewick would have definitely finished second. Obviously, as it goes, he's won it. He's got Jordan Gainford back on board. Obviously, Shark Cannon has said, Jordan's back, riding well after his injury, and it could just be a little bit of a fairy tale dream. He's a massive, massive price in a 13-runner race, and I think, he's not one to be ignored. He's a King George winner at the end of the day, and if they can get him switched off like they did for a bit of a late run, and if you've got Shishkin and Galopin have taken each other on and blown each other out, who knows what could happen there. So I quite like Hewick on it each way, but I really, really do like Galopin Des Champs.
It would be some effort, I think, this year if Galopin was to win the Gold Cup. But considering the path he's been down, I think I read somewhere that a horse hasn't taken the path of going to the Savills, then winning the Irish Gold Cup. They normally come in here with a lighter campaign, it's fair to say. So Willie Mullins has definitely thrown his hand to the ring at the top table this year and all the great ones. Of course, he should be running in them because he's definitely the best stand chaser on this side or either side of the Irish Sea on ratings. But you just wonder if maybe one or two of those runs have just left a mark on him, and something that's coming in here with a fresher campaign could maybe give him something to think about. I mean, Shishkin is definitely on my short list, but I've heard a few people say Brave Man's Game's a bit big. I think personally, he could run a good race, but it probably wouldn't be good enough to reverse form from last year. I'm just not sure if it comes down to a proper battle, he's going to find enough off the bridle for pressure. Corrich Rambler, people have been making waves about, has a good Cheltenham record, never lost, but isn't really my cup of tea. Grand National winner coming here, but who knows? Maybe he's able to. The one horse that probably people think I'm mad for this, but the one horse that I do think that is going to run a big race is the Real Whacker for Patrick Neville. I just think that this horse has been gearing up for this day, and he's
got to be gearing up for something. He's done nothing at all.
Well, I thought his run last time out in the Cotswold Chase behind Capodanno when he finished second wasn't actually a bad run. Each run he's becoming more like it. If you actually look at the King George run, for example, you think, oh yeah, he was absolutely stuffed in that. Like, I mean, when I first looked at him, I was thinking, oh, he was probably beaten 30 odd lengths or something like that. He was only beaten 10 lengths, which, yes, it's still a distance, but in the grand scheme of national hunt racing, like, you see horses finish like that, and you don't think sometimes it's that bad. So he took a step forward there. He ran a blinder last time out, and Henry Brooke on the panel that I said with rides out earlier, rides out Patrick Neville quite a lot, and he said that he was actually going to be schooling him in some headgear. He either was going to be cheek pieces or the visor, and he thought that it was going to make a massive difference either way. I think they're fully yet to nail their custom ask which headgear they're going to use, but if they put headgear on him, he comes back to some of the form from what he showed as a novice last year. I don't think he's completely out of it. That's all I'm saying. Like a 50-1, if you get him 4 or 5 places on the day with some firms, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him maybe fill one of those places. He's not good enough to win, don't get me wrong, but I could see him being in the frame and taking a step forward. And this probably could be his best run of the season. And if he is going to recapture his novice form, it could be good enough for him to play. So that is one horse I do think is worth to mention, the Real Whacker. You heard it here first. But yeah, it would be definitely a shock for some people. That one raised a few eyebrows here on the podcast tonight. But yeah, that's it then for the main races. Of course, we've got our only other business section. Some other good races, including the Mares Chase. I'll mention one in a minute. We've got the Martin Pipe, we've got the County Hurdle. Katie, I'll come to you here first. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
There'd be one in the county hurdle. I was going to say champion hurdle there. There'd be one in the county hurdle that could have actually run in the champion hurdle, actually. Pied Piper for Gordon Elliott. £2 higher this time round. He was narrowly beaten by Favre. I was gutted last year when that happened. But I think he could run a big race again. He's a course and distance winner. So he'd be one. Carrying top weight, it's going to be tough. Hopefully the ground isn't too soft. If it isn't, then I think he's going to have a good chance because he's got plenty of class.
Okay, Pied Piper is for Katie. How about you, Izzy?
I've got one in the Hunter's Chase. And probably, again, no surprise, I really like the look of Billaway. He's 12 years old. He's gone in this race for the last 4 years. He's finished second, first, and then unseated last year. When he was on his comeback run last time out, he was like a good 20 lengths adrift. I think most of you have probably seen the footage of his last run, and he did a classic kind of Billaway flying finish. I feel like I seem to like these horses. Same with Paisley Park, like with that late flying finish. It makes races so exciting, and they really do kind of capture your heart in that moment because you're willing them every stride to get closer. And yeah, I think that's why for me, having shown that this season, it shows to me that Billaway has still got that fight in him. And if he's showing me that, then I can, by all means, stick with him for a 5th year in this race. So I think he's currently, well, when I last looked, which was a couple of days ago, he was around 7-1. And I think they're quite good odds, considering it's not the strongest renewal of the race ever. And veterans and older horses do have a pretty decent record in this race.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to go for one of my old boys, Shantou Flyer, who's a great horse in this race. He's placed in it loads of times, and he's still going to run in it again this year. He's 14, the old boy, but he always runs a blinder. I put him up last year when he plugged into a place, and I think it went viral. Paul Nicholls shouting home. They said it's not always about the winner; it's about like your horse running well at Cheltenham, and because his daughter, obviously, Olive, is going to probably take the ride again. Has plenty of course form, probably not good enough to win, but would I be at all surprised to see him place again? No, I wouldn't. I'll probably be having a couple of quid on him. And one horse I'm going to mention, I'm going to take on another one of the so-called Irish bankers on the day, Dino Blue. She's actually drifted out a little bit. You now get odds against her instead of odds on. She's now 11-10 after being 10-11 odds on. I do think that she's got queries about over this trip about her staying 2.5 miles. Her best form's definitely come over 2 miles. 2.5 miles on soft ground, I think, could stretch her stamina. And there's one horse in here that I quite like. It's a horse called Carol's Pass of Amy Murphy. There's only been 3 renewals of this race, but 2 of the 3 winners were novices, which I think is an interesting angle. I think you want a mare that's still on an upward curve for this race. And Carol's Pass has definitely been getting the hang of things. She's a novice this season over fences. She finished 3rd behind Darklight on her debut at Exeter. She's been going on an upward trajectory ever since. She caught the eye when finishing 3rd at Doncaster behind Limerick Lace, and she then was brought down for no fault of her own at Huntington when she was going as well as any behind Bryce Hill. I think she would have been involved in the finish that day. And then last time we saw her, she bolted up at Exeter very comfortably on heavy ground, beating the likes of Melina Girl, Gallia Dilateur, some good mares. And she's 20-1, and I think she's a horse that's still on an upward curve. Probably if the ground is on the testing side. I think she's not out of this. And like I say, she does have that improving profile. Of course, she's got plenty to find on the ratings, but I think she's an interesting horse, and I wouldn't give up on her because I do think there's a bit more to come. So I'm going to take a swing at there with Carol's Pass. But that's it for this marathon podcast. We've done all 4 days. That's it for another year. Girls, is there anything else you want to add? What you're looking forward to Cheltenham this week? It's definitely one of the high points of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just lovely to have something to look forward to, whether you're going on track, whether you're watching from home. It's racing fans' greatest week of the year, arguably, unless you're a flat fan, in which case you probably like Royal Ascot a bit more. But yeah, for me, Cheltenham is one of the highlights of the entire calendar, to be completely honest with you. And I just hope wherever you're watching, you enjoy and you have a few winners.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the flat. It's only a couple of weeks away to the Lincoln, so yeah, we'll be getting our head back in that zone again. But anyway, enough said there. So yeah, before we sign off, remember to follow us on all the podcast platforms. Follow us on social media. We hope you have a good week, and we'll be seeing you again soon.